Good morning, everyone. How many of you are cold? So I'm going to ask a lot of easy questions so that you all raise your hands, and then we just keep raising our hands and we get a workout. Actually, great to be back in Australia. I grew up in this side of the world, so if you zoom the map to about as high as you can and you look at the right side of the world, I grew up in Bangkok, so not that close, but pretty close. And it was interesting growing up. I always looked up to my dad, and I always thought about how he worked and what work looked like for him. And it was interesting because he would get up in the morning, he would have breakfast with us, no phones, no devices, nothing. He would commute to work. Commuting in Bangkok is pretty nasty, so he would read a newspaper. Obviously, he wasn't driving himself. When at work, he would work. At lunch, he would eat lunch. And then when he came back home, he spent time with us. It was amazing, right? His life was completely compartmentalized, and he just had one thing that he had to do in each of those compartments. That notion does not exist today anymore. Fast forward 30 years later, and we've seen some major shifts. The first one being the fact that work happens absolutely everywhere. So Kevin actually used this example. Just be completely honest with you. How many of you pick up your phone the very first thing in the morning with one eye shut and you look at it and you can't read the email, but you feel compelled to look at it? A lot of you. How many of you actually stop working when you get home and don't check email or work at all by the time you're home at 5, 6, or whatever time it is? I need to talk to you people. You're either lying or I really, really envy you, because I have no idea how you do that. But here's the transformation that's happened. The blend between our personal life, or the gap between our personal life and our work life, doesn't exist. It's just completely muddied, for good or for bad. But as a result, we're innovating at a much rapid pace, and we're far more productive than we've ever been in the past. In fact, according to Forrester research, 37% of business workers worked from 3 or more locations every month. And the expectation is that those workers remain equally as productive. So that's the first trend. The second trend that's happened, and the second major shift, is that people want to not only be productive wherever they are, but on whatever device it is that they use. So just a show of hands, how many of you, and keep your hands up if it's pertinent to you, how many of you at least have one device? Device being a mobile phone, a tablet, or a laptop. I see people that are reading their mobile phones and not raising their hands, so it's kind of bizarre for me. But okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, we have 14 in our household. And mind you, I have 2 kids under 2, so their devices don't count. 14. In fact, last week, my wife came to me and said, you know what? Your devices are now taking up more closet space than my shoes are. She either has tiny feet or she's completely lying. But you get the point, right? That we're starting to collect more devices, and we want to be able to work on any device. And the reality is we want to be highly productive on all those devices. So according to the same survey that Forrester did, 53% of information workers had at least 3 or more devices at work. And I think Miley had a similar slide that she projected up there. People expect to work not only from anywhere, but on all those devices. And they expect all their data and all their files to be available to them at all times. The third big shift that's happening is in the type of data that we consume. So, in the past when we worked, it was all about email and documents and spreadsheets and presentations. And now that world has completely changed. It's changed for us as consumers. It's changed for us as business users. So another personal reference. My wife just gave birth to our second child 5 weeks ago. So actually really blessed to be here. I get to sleep. But for those that have ever gone through this experience, you'll know this, right? It's all about diapers and sleepless nights and spending a lot of money on things like car seats. So we had to buy a car seat for my infant. And I don't know what the regulations are in Australia, but in the US, There are all sorts of regulations. It has to be rear-facing, buckle down with a seatbelt going through, and if it moves more than like an inch in either direction, you failed. You're really bad at it. So first thing I do when I get the car seat is I take out the owner's manual, I go to the car, I take the seat, I try to install it. 45 minutes later, with a sore back, I come back with the car seat, and I tell my wife, you know what, we're just going to carry the son in our lap. Forget this doesn't work. What does my wife do? She actually takes the owner's manual, throws it in the trash, goes to YouTube, looks up Britax car seat installation, sees a really clean 5-minute video on how to install your car seat. She goes and installs it, and it's done. In 10 minutes, she did what I couldn't accomplish in 45 minutes. Right? And that's what's happening. That's the shift that's happening. We're moving from documents, from spreadsheets, from emails, to rich media, to videos, to PDFs, to images. And as more and more of these businesses like Britax are going digital, the amount of information that their employees want to consume is tremendous. It's absolutely enormous. And what we need is we need to make sure that we can accommodate that exponential growth in the amount of data that's going to be available to everyone. So we've talked about these 3 trends, right? People want to work anywhere, at any time, on any device, across all files. The problem is, as easy and noble as it sounds, it's an incredibly complex problem. So first of all, data sits in multiple places, right? It's in emails, it's in your thumb drives, it's with your vendors, it's with your colleagues and wherever else. And it makes it even harder to access all that information as you are on your mobile devices, as you are all here today. And what's even worse is version control. So I don't know if you noticed, but the slide that Kevin put up when he introduced me, we purposely kind of put a little thing at the bottom that said, you know, Tarun Drive for Work, final version 14.2. Do you remember those days? You remember you had to go into your inbox and actually search through 15 documents and figure out which one was the final version? And then you finally get to one that says, final, do not edit version 2.2. Like, what does it mean for version 1? What do you do? And it's just really bizarre. And that's what the systems today are built for. They're built to be complex, and that's not the world that we live in, and that's not the world that business users live in. And you know, that problem is not just a problem for business users. It's actually a huge problem for IT users, IT leaders as well. See, business users now, because of their consumer lives, as Miley pointed out, they demand extreme simplicity. And your challenge as an IT leader is you need to make sure that you provide them that simplicity. Because if you don't do so, they will start bringing in their own consumer experiences and products into work.